Hello, everybody. Peter Greenberg here with our weekly Facebook Global Live Travel Update for the world. Happy Thursday, wherever you happen to be. Of course, you can always send in your questions to me as we continue on this broadcast. A lot of stuff to talk about today, including two very interesting anniversaries this week. I'm going to talk about first. One happened, making me feel old, 10 years ago today. Everybody remember the Costa Concordia, which ran aground and then later sank off the coast of Italy, January 13th, 2012. Remember the captain, Captain Schettino, who left the ship before everybody else. He was sentenced later on to 16 years in prison for manslaughter. But the interesting lesson from that disaster, which I investigated, by the way, is one thing that cruise ships always used to do. If you've ever taken a cruise, you may remember this, right? The muster drill, where you'd go to your cabin, get your life preserver, and assemble at your muster station sometime during the cruise, so you'd know what to do in the event of an emergency. By the time of this disaster in 2012, they had changed the rule to say you had to do it within 24 hours of leaving port. Well, this incident occurred about 6 hours after leaving port, so nobody really knew what to do, number one. And number two, a fatal flaw in the procedures, which have now been changed, thankfully. Passengers were told to return to their cabins to get their life preservers, even though there are life preservers located throughout the ships and at every muster station. 32 people died in that disaster, most of them because they returned to their cabins lower deck, below sea level at that point, below the water line, and were trapped and could never leave. So you may notice now that the muster drill happens before the ship ever leaves the dock, and you're no longer instructed by most cruise lines to go back to your cabin. In fact, whether you're instructed to do so or not, listen to me. In the event of any problem on a ship, fire being the worst disaster you could have, rather than just sinking, the last thing you want to do is to return to your cabin. You want to get to the highest point on the ship, muster station, where there are life preservers available. Anyway, 10 years ago today, the Costa Concordia, not only a remarkable story of what happened when the captain wasn't watching. Remember, he was on the bridge with his girlfriend, waving to a friend on shore. Remember that? Wasn't paying attention to the fact that he was going into very shallow water. But interestingly enough, the actual recovery of the ship and the salvaging of the ship, which took more than a year, a remarkable operation of engineering, considering what it took to get that ship off the rocks, back to a shipyard, and then finally broken up. All right, that's anniversary number one. Anniversary number two happened 13 years ago this Saturday. That's right. 13 years ago this Saturday, on January 15, 2009, what was it? U.S. Air Flight 1549, Sully Sullenberger, the Miracle on the Hudson, and another remarkable story with a happier ending. And that plane, by the way, is still in North Carolina if you want to go visit it. It got trucked out there. I covered that story for NBC. In fact, we won the Emmy for it. An amazing thing of what happens when everything aligns to provide a very lucky afternoon. You know, we went back in the simulators, I did, after the incident to recreate that entire flight plan. And remember, it was a very cold day, January of 2009, January 15th. And it was leaving from LaGuardia when it hit the birds. You remember that? But when we flew the flight in the exact second-by-second trajectory of that original flight in the simulator, here's what we discovered. If the birds had hit the plane a minute later in the flight plan, he never would have been able to turn around. If the birds had hit him a minute before, he never would have had enough altitude to clear the George Washington Bridge, which he did at a precariously low about 600 feet. And then it was the time of day. If that incident had occurred an hour earlier that day, there was zero visibility on the Hudson. And an hour later, as we all experienced, because I was there, the river iced up. At the precise moment that Captain Sullenberger and his first officer, Jeffrey Skiles, put that plane on the river, there were no boats in the middle of the river. They're all back at their dock. And talk about a miracle, he planted it right across from what? the Circle Line cruises and the World Cruises guys. Here's the most amazing part of the story that people don't remember. From the moment that plane hit the water to the moment every passenger was rescued standing on the wings, how long did it take? Who wants to guess? It's amazing. 24 minutes. 24 minutes. All those boat captains had to do is lift off the lines, get out there, and get people aboard. It was amazing. And of course, an amazing piece of captainship on the part of the pilots Sullenberger and Skiles. So anyway, 13 years ago this Saturday, and of course 10 years ago today for the Costa Concordia. Now let's get to the news of anniversaries we hope we don't have to celebrate, like more than 30,000 flight cancellations and delays since Christmas. But here's the interesting distinction. Before 3 weeks ago, right after Christmas, the airlines were canceling thousands of flights because they had no choice. They had to. What about now? Most of the flights they're canceling are because they want to, maybe need to, because it's the first quarter. Nobody's flying. Better time to cancel flights, pull them off the schedule, get back to a sustainable, stable schedule, and get people back in order. That's what they're doing. Are there more COVID testing positives at the airlines? Yes, but look at the United Airlines figure. They had 3,000 employees right now who tested positive. No hospitalizations, no deaths. Why? Remember United Airlines, you had to get vaccinated by September 27th last year or lose your job? Da-da, it worked. And they'll be back on. The United Airlines is now leading. They're not following. They did a great job. They should be commended for that. Here's what's going on, though. JetBlue canceled 1,300 flights this month just to get back on track. Alaska Airlines canceled 10% of their entire flight schedule this month just to get back on track. And overseas, nobody's flying because of other regulations, which we'll get into in a little bit. Lufthansa, 33,000 flights canceled until February 15th. That's about 1,000 flights a day. Nobody's flying. So if you're going to be flying, as I am tomorrow, as a matter of fact, here's what you need to do. Don't go by any electronic alert that your flight is on time. That's meaningless garbage. You need to pick up the phone. You need to call the airline, or you can even go to FlightAware or Flight Radar 24 to figure out which aircraft is assigned to your flight and where is it. But most importantly, you want to try to get the first flight of the day and then call the airline and say, I'm on this flight. It's leaving at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning or 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Did this aircraft or will this aircraft overnight in my airport tonight? Will it spend the night at the airport? And if it does, you have about an 80% chance the crew stays with the flight. You're going to leave tomorrow. All right? You want to try that out, by the way, when we're not in a pandemic. It works. All right, let's go to some more news here. The CDC now doing what? Relaxing the guidelines on cruise ship compliance. It's now going to be voluntary. Why are they doing that? Even though COVID cases are spreading? Let's talk about that. First of all, and I talked about this last week, the numbers are still the same, except that there's not a single cruise ship out there that doesn't have at least one case of COVID-19. But all the passengers, all the crew, all the officers are vaccinated. We're talking about very mild cases or asymptomatic cases requiring no hospitalization, nobody's dying, and the numbers, it's been reported it's an outbreak. Stop it. The caseload on these ships is less than 1.5%. Any community in America that had a COVID caseload of 1.5% would be throwing a party. So, if you're vaccinated, if you're boosted, if you're wearing a mask, if you're playing by the rules, if your doctor tells you can go, there's still 240 cruise lines out there maintaining their itinerary. And we'll talk about that a little later. But the rules are changing overseas, and they're changing rapidly, especially in Europe. And so I've asked one of my pals, he's the senior travel editor for The Independent in London. We're going to go across the pond right now and bring in Simon Calder. Simon, are you there?
Oh my goodness, Peter! What a pleasure to see you, to hear from you, to talk to you, and yeah, what times! I'm so interested to hear about your about these great anniversaries. Well, the great anniversary of the miracle on the Hudson. Well, we call it miracle. The media calls it a miracle. In fact, of course, it was just great, as you showed with your report. Amazing airmanship and a good dose of good fortune as well. And of course, the very sad news of Costa Concordia just 10 years ago. But look, what is happening in the world of cruising there? There's a great deal of unhappiness here in the UK about the number of people who are being taken off cruise ships because they have tested positive, and they are put up into all kinds of well, not exactly top grade accommodation and left there. It's a mess.
Well, let's talk about, though, the changing rules. For example, is it enough just to have a vaccination? Maybe not. The Netherlands now saying you're going to have to show proof of having a booster. You know, we're about the 1-year anniversary coming up of the vaccine itself and people getting it. So now you're seeing the European Union, last time I looked, saying their vaccination passports have a 9-month validity. So tell me what's going on.
Okay, well, really important that just in the past few hours, France has opened up to British travellers, or rather, they say they are going to do it at some stage on Friday. We still don't know exactly what that will mean, ridiculously. I mean, I've got my passport here all ready to go. I'm having a COVID test as soon as I finish speaking to you. I'm literally going straight to the laboratory to get that done, and I will be leaving at some stage in the next few hours. Either that, or I'll spend most of tomorrow on the White Cliffs of Dover, waiting until they sign the appropriate decree in Paris. So it's a right old muddle, but it just shows how strange things are. And yes, the rules, it's so interesting the way the dialogue has changed from "are you fully vaccinated" to "how fully vaccinated are you then?" And certainly going into France while having 2 jabs of Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Moderna, etc., is sufficient, or 1 jab of Janssen. Once you get there, you might have heard that the French president wants to, well, I would use the phrase, cheese off the people who haven't been vaccinated. So they've got much tougher rules, which also understandably apply to visitors. So if you've been fully jabbed and it's more than 7 months ago, you've got to have your booster. Otherwise, you can't even so much as go for a coffee.
All right. And that's the kind of stuff we can read about, of course, in The Independent. We have you, of course, on our radio show all the time. We much appreciate it, Simon. By the way, our radio show this Saturday, for those of you who follow these things, you know what the second largest cause of complaint during the pandemic among travelers was travel insurance, which they bought with the best of intentions, only to find out it didn't cover for pandemic. We're going to have the CEOs of 2 insurance companies on to talk about how the industry may be adjusting to that now with policies that will cover you for COVID. But I'm always interested in what the exclusions are. So we'll be talking to them this Saturday on Ion Travel on CBS. That's 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. Check your local listings. And you can always stream it live. Just go to our website, petergreenberg.com. Simon Calder from The Independent in London. Nice to see you on the screen. Hope to see you in person if they'll let me in. And I'll talk to you soon.
You're very welcome anytime, Peter. Great to talk to you.
You got it. And good luck today.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Back to you guys now. Yes, we are going to talk to the CEOs of the 2 insurance companies, and we'll be speaking this Saturday on the radio with the CEO of Marriott about a wide range of subjects that are important to you if you're going to be staying in a hotel in the COVID era. All right. So that's what I talked to you about the countries that are requiring now booster proof. There you go. And, just having your vaccination card on your phone is not enough. You want to carry it physically with you. Xerox one. It's no different than a passport. Put it in a second location because you got to show it. And more often than not, you got to show it just to go to a restaurant or anywhere else. By the way, a strange story from 2 days ago that most people don't know about, unless you might have been on the West Coast at a particular hour trying to get on an airplane. The FAA instituted a ground stop for about 15 minutes. Nothing moved in or out of the West Coast on Tuesday. Anybody want to know why? Was it because of weather? Nope. Was it because of a police action? No. Was it because of air traffic control problems? Absolutely not. They instituted a ground stop because 2 days ago, the North Koreans launched a ballistic missile. And the early intelligence showed not where it was going, but what its range might be. Now, remember, there was a time not too long ago that the range of a North Korean ballistic missile was estimated to be Guam. So Guam was on the news, getting ready. Well, this time the intelligence indicated it might have had the range to get to the west coast of the United States. So they put everything on hold for 15 minutes. Nobody knew why. Now you know, by the way, the missile flew harmlessly into the ocean about 400 miles after it took off. But anyway, that's your ground stop news for Thursday for those people who follow such things in North Korean missile launches. Okay, now I got to share this story with you because the question is, and this I addressed this question to the hotel, otherwise known as, what were you thinking? I'll just read you the headline. An executive is sued by the Mandarin Oriental Hotel in London for £740,000 over an unpaid bill. He checked into a £4,700 a night suite for 6 days and then stayed for, get ready, 8 months. Now, if the hotel wasn't paid for 1 week, I would think they might be a little concerned. 2 weeks? Perhaps a knock on the door. 8 months? Oh, I want that suite. I want to check in. So we'll let you know what happens in that case. By the way, the funny thing is, you know who he used to work for? The British Broadcasting Corporation. So that's breaking news for you. Okay, now let's scroll down to some of your questions here. And let me drop to the top. All right. Patrick says, good morning, right back to you. And good morning, Mike from San Francisco. And of course, from Alabama and Katrina. Morning from Los Angeles. Everybody's saying hello. Castle Rock. Patty asking me if I'm good. I'm good. Charlotte, North Carolina from Sandy. Hello from Atchison, Kansas. All right, Willie. I'm headed to a small town in Maryland this weekend called Hagerstown. That's such a small town. I like Hagerstown. Hey, Joseph Mwangi, Jumbo from Nairobi. Okay, and happy belated New Year to you too, sir. Colleen does remember the Concordia incident very well. Emily wants to know the best time to buy a flight for a late May, June trip to Switzerland. Now, if it's not after June 15th, you'll still get a deal. Patty says, Sully the hero, you bet. Yep. Oh, thank you, Colleen, for the congratulations on the Emmy. Okay. Mike Lucan says, just back to Fort Lauderdale for 3 days of great skiing in Park City. Okay. Patrick just reminded me of something. Another story that I covered. Oh, my goodness. This is where I feel old and really old. Patrick just reminded me. 40 years ago today. Ready? Air Florida Flight 90 into the bridge in Washington, D.C. in the ice. It's an amazing story, which we investigated. You know, the way they trained those Air Florida pilots back then was they never wanted them to redline the engines because they were worried about like upping the hours that they'd need to get it back into maintenance sooner. Well, there was ice on the wings on that plane that day. And as he came down the runway at Reagan National, otherwise it wasn't Reagan National, then it was Washington National. As he came down the runway, the co-pilot and the pilot realized they weren't getting to their takeoff speed, but they took off anyway. But they never redlined the engines. They never gave it that extra thrust. They never made it higher than about 150 feet and right back into that bridge. Remember that the guy who jumped into the river? I think his name was Lenny. I may be wrong. Who rescued some people? People did survive that crash. And the next night at the State of the Union address, he was Reagan's guest in the gallery in the Capitol. Anyway, Air Florida crash 90. And what did we learn from that? When in doubt, redline the engines. What's the worst thing that can happen? Among other things, like de-icing, which reminds me at a time like this, so thank you for reminding me, Patrick, about that crash. Our de-icing procedures in this country suck. Tell you why. And everybody that's watching this who's been on a plane in the winter knows what I'm talking about when I put it in context. You're on a plane. It's winter. It's freezing or below freezing. The protocols call for de-icing the wings and the surfaces before pushing back. And so a truck comes over with that glycol solution, right? And they just de-ice everything. Here's the problem. There are 40 planes in line to get off in front of you. So now you push back from the gate, and now you're in a line of planes 40 planes long. And by the time you get to your port, your takeoff point, you need to be de-iced again. Return to the gate. Stupidity in motion. You know what they've done in some airports in France? Brilliant. They said no longer will we allow the airlines to de-ice their own planes. We're going to build a de-icing station at the end, both sides of the runway, sort of like a car wash. And right before you take off, you go in the car wash. That's your last thing you do before you turn on your final to take off. And it works like a charm. It also allows them to collect these toxic materials, right, the solutions, so they can be basically preserved and cycled so they don't go into the systems. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Why aren't we doing it in the United States? I do not know. They've done it there in France for years. Okay, here we go. Good morning from Cincinnati. Hello from Tampa. Evelyn says hi. Patty is saying nobody flying is right. Yeah. By the way, I'm flying tomorrow from New York to Los Angeles. What's my airfare? Okay, here it comes. Whatever you guessed, you're wrong. You know, none of you are going to the Showcase Showdown. It's $108. And I'm flying next week from Dallas to LaGuardia on American nonstop, $32. All right. Sandy says we're seriously thinking of going to Botswana, ending in either Cape Town in either April or September. What do I think of just limiting to one country so no border crossing in time of year? The 2020 trip was canceled due to COVID. My hubby is ready to go. I am more apprehensive since our booster is going on 6 months old. Okay. If you're going in April, then get another booster. And I don't have a problem. Look, if you're fully vaccinated and you're boosted and you're wearing a mask, Botswana and Cape Town have social distancing baked into the experience, right? So do Botswana, then head south to Cape Town, and come home. Again, and you say Travel Guard does not cover quarantine costs. Very important statement there. What I want you to do is listen to the radio show on Saturday when we have the insurance CEOs on, and let's find out what is and what is not covered. Who's got the best policy? Okay. Patty says, I'm on Peter's flight and it will fly. I have no guarantees that my flight's going to fly tomorrow, but I have a plan B and a plan C. Better believe it. Look, when the airfare is $108, why not reserve on another flight and another flight? At least you got a seat. Now, the flights aren't full anyway, but that's what I did. And I'm not going to lose any money. Okay. Hello from Uganda, from Crust. Elizabeth, we are traveling to Switzerland in June. Just wondering the current COVID restrictions for U.S. passengers. Check out our website on Monday. We're going to update everything, but I have to warn you, it's changing by the hour. It really is. So even though we're going to post it on our website, don't even just go by us alone. Pick up the phone. This is the time to talk to a travel agent. They need to know this information up to the minute based on destination and origin too. So, but we'll still post it. Okay. What's the tool to track aircraft location and status of flight? Well, there are two that I use. One is called Flight Aware, and the other one, which I'm addicted to for other reasons, is flightradar.com. Now, there's the basic version and there's the pro version. You know I'm on the pro version just because I'm a geek. But check it out. You'll find yourself walking down the street and hearing a plane go overhead, and you'll punch in Flight Radar 24 and you'll know who's flying it. No, not the pilot's name, but you know the airline, the aircraft type, and it's even more interesting. You push the little arrow down the chevron for more information, and what do you get? How old the plane is, where it's been on its last 8 flights. Cool stuff. Okay, or maybe you don't want to know. I do. United app is great. It has the option to see where's my plane. Yes, but here's the thing. You mentioned United. Where your plane is almost less important to where your airport is, because if you're flying United out of Denver, Chicago, or Newark, you got a chance that if your flight's not there, they're going to find another plane because they have some backup planes. If you're flying out of Sheboygan, probably not. So it's a twofold deal. Okay. Okay, so I'm getting your vacation this summer before my son goes off to college. Still recommending waiting to purchase plane tickets 3 to 4 months ahead, or should I jump on the nonstops I see now they're at the top of our budget? Okay. You haven't told me specifically, Tia, where you want to go. Every market varies, so get back to me with that. Okay. All right. Colleen says, I love to listen to Simon Calder. I have no idea what cheese off means, but I have a guess. Yeah, I have a guess too. You know exactly what it means. Okay. Crust is just telling us from Uganda that the country is open to tourists with a requirement of a negative PCR certificate, and you have to do a rapid test on arrival. More and more countries are asking you to do an arrival test, by the way, and Uganda is one of them. So is Tanzania, by the way. I just did that. Scott wants to know, are passports being processed faster? Yes, they are. Good news, and a lot of you have been telling me good news, but it's true. Now that people are back in the U.S. passport offices and working physically in those buildings, they can physically process those passports. So the wait time has gone from 8 to 9 months down to about 6 to 7 weeks, and some of you actually had it returned in 3 weeks. This is the time of year to do it, because you know what's going to happen in April. People, oh my God, my passport's expired, I don't have one, and then the crush starts again. Do it now. Okay. Okay. Jacksonville, Florida. Hello, Scott. Great question, Gail. What's the difference between vaccinated and fully vaccinated? My guess is 1 shot or 2. Fully vaccinated, based on the vaccine you're getting. Is it Johnson & Johnson or Moderna or Pfizer? That's what it really means. Okay. We are due to travel to Egypt in November 2022. We believe GEM, the fabulous Great Grand Egyptian Museum, will open November 4th. That's what I said last week. My indication is it's going to be in November because it celebrates a 100th anniversary. That's what I think. Okay. Okay. Oh, Beverly's going to Andalusia for a month of February. Fully vaccinated, boosted. Thoughts on Spain travel this time? I'm not going to say via con Dios. I'm going to say via. Go for it. All right. Jim and Harriet says, greetings from Richmond, Virginia. I have a funny Richmond story, by the way. And by the way, if you're smart, you'll find it on some other routes as well. I was in Richmond, Virginia, doing our radio show one day, and I needed to get to New York the next morning. Well, you know how many flights there are from Richmond, Virginia to LaGuardia? First of all, not many. And the airfare was like $800 on a little Captain Skippy plane. So in those days, I had an idea. Amtrak. So I go down the schedule, and this sounds like a bad Richard Pryor movie, but guess what pulls into Richmond at 4 a.m. every day? The Silver Meteor. Starts in Florida, ends in Penn Station. And it has sleeper cars. So I booked a ticket. For how much? $700, $800? No, $140. I get out to the station at 4 o'clock in the morning. Here comes the Silver Meteor. I have my own cabin. I go to bed. And guess what? 6 hours later, by the way, you see this? This is called a scam call. And if I answer it, I'm going to do the F word. So I'm not. Anyway, Silver Meteor shows up. I get in the sleeper compartment. And 7 hours later, I'm at Penn Station at 11 o'clock in the morning. Piece of cake. There are a lot of Amtrak alternatives right now. In fact, in Europe, there's a big movement to ban short-haul flying. And when you think about the efficiency of trains in Europe, why wouldn't you ban short-haul flying? It's not just an environmental issue, it's efficiency, absolute efficiency. So we'll have more about that next week about what's going on with short-haul flying. But in the US, Amtrak's coming back, folks. Check out the Silver Meteor at some other trains. Okay, John's saying hi from Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. We were just there at the airport 2 weeks ago. I was there for 2 days, don't ask. And Catherine says it's a beautiful day in Sierra Madre, and she's a huge fan of Captain Sullenberger. Okay. By the way, he's from California as well. All right, let's scroll back up here. If I can get this thing to move. And it's not moving. Now it's moving. Hold on. Okay. Now, I think it's time, before I get any crazier, to go to our photo of the week. Speaking of that, here's a less than subtle hint. Where was that taken? Think hard. I just mentioned it. Yeah, it was, first of all, Terry Biolaski, I think is her name, took this photograph in April of last year while on safari in the southern Serengeti. That's right. Love Tanzania. The mom and young cheetah had just eaten, as evidenced by the cub's protruding tummy as they relaxed on a termite mound. The wildlife sightings were prolific as the human traffic was greatly reduced. That's a fact. When we were just there, we had a similar experience. By the way, speaking of Tanzania, and by the way, thank you so much, Terry, for that. And if you have a photo of the week you think you should have on our show, just send it in. Love that shot. And they like to pose the animals, I see. By the way, speaking of Tanzania, mark down your calendars for the week of April 18th. Our new show, The Royal Tour of Tanzania with the President of Tanzania, Samia Suluhu Hassan, will be airing starting on the 21st of April on PBS. It will also be available on Amazon Prime and Apple TV+. We'll have more on that as we get closer, because we'll maybe even show some clips from the show. As some of you may know, it's part of our ongoing series called The Royal Tour. It has nothing to do with monarchy. It's where I go to individual sitting heads of state who then dedicate about 7 days of their schedule to me. And then for the next 7 days, they're my tour guide to the country, just the two of us. Imagine two people on a road trip, one of whom just happens to run the country. And hope you'll tune in. If you're looking for some past shows, they're still available on Amazon Prime, ranging from the Royal Tour of Jordan to Poland, to Rwanda, to Mexico, to Ecuador. It's all there. Israel. So check it out. All right. But again, April 21st, check your local listings for Royal Tour of Tanzania. And this particular photograph from Terry was totally coincidental. I just found out about it last night when we picked it. And so I thought I'd share the coincidence with you. Okay, some of your previous questions that you sent in. But before we do that, I asked a trivia question earlier this week, if you saw it, because you know I've been railing about you redeeming your frequent flyer miles because they're devaluing them, and every airline's doing it, and there's nobody telling them that they can't because there's no federal mandate allowed in deregulation. Airlines can make the rules, they can change the rules. Do it now in the first quarter when everybody else is sleeping. But the question I asked is how many, and I know some of you have a lot of these lying around, how many unredeemed frequent flyer miles are currently sitting around out there that have not been redeemed? How many? Who wants to take a guess? How many unredeemed frequent flyer miles are there in the world? Just sitting there. All right. Anybody want to guess? I'll give you a second. All right. Whatever you're going to guess, you're going to be wrong. It's 23 trillion. Make you feel better? Make you want to go redeem your miles fast? Now, I don't want to start a mileage run here on the bank, but the point is your mileage is not a bank. It doesn't accrue interest. It only gets devalued sometimes by the day. So get out the flight schedules, look at a map, figure out where your mileage is located in terms of which airline and which strategic partnership they're part of, and then plan up to 330 days out and redeem those miles, because two things are happening as we're speaking. They're raising the level of the miles needed to be redeemed to get on a particular flight in a particular class. And what else are they doing? They're making it harder to redeem them anyway because they're decreasing the availability of the frequent flyer reward seats. Okay? It's a double negative. So move quickly on that. All right? Now some of your questions. Janice says, I'm planning to fly to Nice in May. How far out in advance should I be buying my airline tickets? Fully vaccinated and have my booster shot. Well, normally, if you're flying in late May, you should be okay to do that now. But you may be able to wait 1 or 2 more weeks. But remember, you have a lot of festivals happening, at least historically, in May and June, not to mention the Cannes Film Festival and a few others. So plan accordingly. But right now, the flights are not expensive. They're not. Same thing for redeeming mileage. My point exactly. If you've got mileage lying around, redeem them for the flights to Nice now. Then you lock them in. Okay. Maridel says, will I be going to Morocco as scheduled in March? My guess is yes. Petronilli, I hope I get the name right. When will tourism settle due to this chaos of different symptoms of COVID-19? Well, look, tourism, let's be real. Tourism has settled for smart travelers. Look at the numbers. You take a look at all the spiking cases around the world and in the US, pretty damaging. 99% of them are unvaccinated. That's what's filling our hospitals. That's what's overloading our frontline workers. That's what's taxing our hospital systems. The people who I know, and by the way, I know a lot of them now, who are fully vaccinated and boosted and still got the variant, did not end up in the hospital. They were down for about 2 days, maybe 3, like a bad flu, and they bounced back. Why do you think the CDC reduced the quarantine from a 10-day requirement to a 5? Because if you're vaccinated, that's about it. So, look, you want to know where tourism chaos is? It's in the unvaccinated. It's not in the vaccinated. It has not stopped me from traveling since July of 20. And that was 6 months before I got a vaccine. So be smart. And look, there's going to come a time when someone's going to have to pull the pin and throw the grenade. It may be the private sector, it may be the government. Remember, we're still waiting for the Supreme Court to rule on the appeal of the Biden administration's rule that companies with more than 100 employees have to be fully vaccinated. Have no idea which way that ruling is going to go. But if it rules in the affirmative for the Biden administration, then you can count on a rule that you won't be able to get on an airplane without showing proof of vaccination. I have a story to do with the cruise lines, right? They weren't required to do that. They did it themselves. And, for all those airlines who want the masks taken off, hey, by the way, I want the masks taken off. Every time I have to wear a mask, it pisses me off because I hate wearing them. It's not an aesthetic thing. I just don't like the way it feels. Okay? But forgetting that, I support the masks until we get a vaccination level that makes sense. And right now in this country, we're not making sense. So that's where we are. All right. Here's one from Sandy. Any more news on the gem? Oh, yeah. I just said it. November. Okay. All right. Sandy, second question. What are my thoughts? Oh, we just did that answer, Sandy. Here's one from Jolene. In these days of COVID, how safe is a summer river cruise in Europe? How safe is any travel? Well, first of all, a summer river cruise in Europe, you're on a ship with about 120 people. There's social distancing built in. When you get to these small ports on the river, you're just walking, socially distancing again. I don't see a problem. Again, you're not getting on that ship unless you're vaccinated and boosted, and the crew has the same rule, and the officers have the same rule. So remember, it's going to be okay. COVID is not a virus we're going to eradicate. The consensus is COVID is a virus that we're going to manage. And the real challenge is how well we manage it, how fast we manage it, how sensitively we manage it, and I saved the best for last, how intelligently we manage it. That's the key. Okay. Here's one from Jacob. I was planning on traveling to Denver from LAX this weekend for a bachelor party, but the groom-to-be got COVID. Will I be able to get a travel refund on my airfare if I'm not the one who got COVID? I got news for you. Even if you were the one who got COVID, you're not getting a refund if you cancel. We've been down this road before. But the good news is you're not going to lose your money. The airline will give you a credit that you can use for at least a year. And in fact, Delta, I think just yesterday, extended those vouchers they gave till 2024. That's the right thing to do. I have 2 of them, so it affected me as well. All right, but remember, tune into the show on Saturday to hear about the new variant on travel insurance, not just COVID, the insurance itself, to see if we're really going to be covered now. So tune in on Saturday. Okay, let's see here from Elise. Do I know if United and other airlines are offering triple pay right now for flight attendants, or is that just for the pilots? No, they were offering triple pay for the flight attendants, but there are a few takers because, remember, you either had flight attendants who were high in seniority, who'd flown the minimum number of hours, didn't want to fly anymore no matter what, or you had flight attendants lower in seniority who'd flown their maximum number of hours and couldn't fly anymore. So it was a nice gesture, but very few takers. And are Emirates or Qatar flying in or out of South Africa? I will check on that. Anthony, would you please check on that for us? I don't know the answer, but we will get it for you. Okay? All right, let's go scrolling down to see if we have any more people on the line here that I can answer your questions. Hold on. Oh, yeah, we have a few here. Sonny says, I have Flight Radar and Flighty apps. Highly recommend both. Okay. Okay. Let's see. We are headed to Denver this weekend. My son will get to see snow for the first time. What is your favorite restaurant in Denver? Well, I've got about 8 of them, and most of them are in Lodo. So I'm not going to give you one over the other, but Lodo is pretty cool. All right. And if you are in Lodo, go over to my favorite bookstore. Well, I take that back. One of my 3 favorite bookstores in America, the Tattered Cover. If you're in Portland, of course, you want to go to Powell's. Support your independent bookstores too. And then walk over to Lodo and have a great dinner. Patrick wants to know thoughts on the Australian Open. You know, don't get me started. I don't care if the guy's a tennis champ. You play by the rules. I mean, the double standard is on display right now in a country that won't let anybody in except him. Let's see what happens. Okay. Sanders says, if everyone is tested negative, how can so many people get COVID from an air flight? You're referring to that flight from India last week. We talked about it on the radio, actually, where 175 people on a flight tested positive. They'd only just tested negative before they got on the plane. This is the words false positive with capital letters. It's a statistical impossibility. So, of course, they were all retested, and we know what happened. Maybe 2 people tested positive again. Okay, we are flying home to California in the next month or so. One way to get the best rate, how many weeks should we book ahead? Well, if it's 1 month from now, do it today. Do it today. I just told you what my airfare was going from New York to LA to $108, right? Can't beat it. Okay. Okay. Victoria says she's leaving for Geneva on February 4th. Swiss is now requiring a Swiss COVID digital certificate. Wow. Is it covered in chocolate? Must apply and takes up to 5 days. Mandatory to check into hotels. Okay. But you can do this online, of course. And as Victoria says, your U.S. vaccination card will not be accepted. You want to know why? So many forgeries. So check it out. A lot of countries are going to digital, but I still carry my vaccination card. Okay. Hello from Wisconsin. Hi, Peter. Did Delta extend the air credits till the end of 2023? Yes, they did, Gina. I just said that. Yep. All right, let's scroll down here a second. Still going. Still going. All right. Oh, Donna says, as a travel agent, I have to thank you for supporting the travel agent community. Look, I'm not supporting the travel agent community because I'm a cheerleader for travel agents. But if anybody proved their worth during the pandemic, it was the travel agents. They were the heroes. They worked tirelessly as advocates for their clients with no revenue. And in fact, they lost revenue because they were advocating what? Refunds. And when the refund came to you, they gave back their commission to the travel provider as well. You know what? Shout out to the travel agents. Okay. Here's one from Joy. I'm thinking of New York to see the cities close to each other. How do you get to New York? On an airplane, which will take you longer than the play? You know what? I feel comfortable. Remember, you got to show a vaccination certificate to get into the theater. Okay. Tina says, I'm hitting Barcelona inbound and heading back from Paris. Okay, Tia, what was your question again? It's a while ago. Ask me again and I'll tell you. Okay, let's see. Stephanie's going to Tucson, Arizona for the first time. Any must-sees? Yeah, Stephanie Klett. Now, many people don't know this, but I'm going to shout out to Stephanie here. She was former head of tourism in the state of Wisconsin, but before that, I know most of you did not attend this particular ceremony. She was crowned Miss Limburger in America's Dairyland. I know she's never going to talk to me again, but that's true. Anyway, Stephanie, you know what? Email me to peter@petergreenberg.com and I'll answer that question. But in the meantime, nice to see you online here. Okay. Hello from Boynton Beach in Florida. Ben's guiding a safari group to Tanzania. Good going. All right. Watching from Tanzania. All right, we have a lot of Tanzania watchers today. Asante. How soon after landing in France do I need to get my EU COVID pass? I need to take a train to Nancy when I get there. You don't necessarily need the EU COVID pass. They're still accepting the vaccination card. They make it very easy for you to get it as an EU citizen. It's a little bit more cumbersome as an American citizen. I don't think you need the COVID pass. You do need your vaccination certificate. All right. All right. Virginia Beach is saying hi. Oh, Tia guessed 300 million. Sandy guessed 30 million. Ted guessed 2 trillion. Well, you already know the answer. You're all lost. Forget it. It's 23 trillion. And Mary says, yes, go to see the Broadway plays. She's seen all 3 shows, or she's seen 3 shows, and safe if you're vaxxed. I think you're right. Okay, Jew is saying greetings from Japan. What's the best month to go to Hawaii, and which island do you prefer? Well, I will go to Hawaii any month of the year. So forget the seasonality of it all. But if you want to know my favorite islands, I have 2. I love parts of Maui, but I really love Kauai. I really love Kauai. You'll see why when you get there, right? And it's not just the Napali Coast, and it's not just Poipu Beach, and it's not just, it's pretty cool. The Kalalau Trail, it's great. Okay. Now, here's one from Mary. This is going to get me angry. It says Delta wants 93,000 miles to upgrade to first class on the Seattle to Paris route. Forget it. Remember I told you they're devaluing the miles and they're making them harder to redeem? There's your example right there. 93,000 miles? Sorry, count me out. No. If it's a situation like that, just redeem it for a coach ticket or maybe 3 coach tickets, but no first class seat in my book, under the way Delta computes things, is worth 93,000 miles to upgrade, let alone get the ticket. Okay. How do I feel about dining indoors right now? Here's how I feel about it. Are they separating the tables? Or are they back to those terrible 2s next to the terrible 2s? I hate terrible 2s. Here's my secret, and every restaurateur hates me for this. Pre-pandemic, pandemic, and post-pandemic, if I'm having dinner with you, and it's just you and me, I always make a reservation for 3. Go ahead, get mad at me. You know why? Because they got to give me a table for 4 then. And Elijah never shows up. Why? Because now I have space to think. I'm not part of somebody else's conversation who I don't know. Our elbows aren't hitting. And if any restaurant wants to make a claim, and I can see it's a legitimate claim, that I should pay more for that, I will. But I will not be completely deranged at a terrible 2. I'm there to enjoy my meal, not your conversation at the next table. Okay. All right, some housekeeping real fast before we run out of time. Eye on Travel on CBS Radio this Saturday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Remember, we've got the CEOs of Marriott, Allianz, and Kovac Insurance on board, among many other stories. We'll talk about that. If you can't find it in your local listings, it's an easy solution. Just go to our website, petergreenberg.com, hit the icon, and we stream it live. Okay? And if you miss that, it's a podcast as of next Tuesday, the whole show. Okay. Then, of course, Royal Tour Tanzania, April 21st, mark it down. And of course, Travel Detective Season 7 starting soon on your local PBS stations. And I'm going to take my $108 fare and go to Los Angeles tomorrow. Our Facebook Live Global Update next week is not from Los Angeles, but it won't be from New York either. There's your tease. Have a great week, everybody. Travel safe. We'll see you next week.